Welcome to Video Quick Tips, the show that brings you tips and techniques to help you produce better video. I'm your host, Bill Mecca. We're going to talk about a couple things in this episode, but first of all, my new toy, which stays right here in my top pocket. A Kodak Zi8 pocket camcorder. Very similar to the Flip. This, like the Flip, has been discontinued. Cisco announced that they were getting rid of the Flip a couple weeks ago. Kodak has replaced this with other models, the Play and the Play Sport, which are very similar. This has one disadvantage from the Flip, which is its shape. It's very similar, but the Flip is more of a box where you can set it down on a counter. So you don't really need to put it on a tripod if you happen to have something in place. This is rounded at the bottom and it won't sit there. It does have a mounting screw for a tripod. It has a couple other advantages. It has a mic input, which is very helpful. As you know me, I like external microphones. You can use one with a mini plug to get better sound. It also is not limited to internal memory. This has very little internal memory. I think it's 128 megabytes. So it's good for a test recording or two, but it records to removable SD or SDHC cards. This is an 8 gigabyte card, cost me about $15. So if you're on a shoot, you can change, just like you used to change tapes, you can change cards and you can store it that way. Like the Flip, it has the USB port that comes out right out of the side. Almost wish they were a little bit longer because you really need an external cable unless you're hooking this up to a laptop. If you've got a mini tower and your USB port is up halfway, you're going to need a cable because you can't really leave this hanging, dangling from it. This is great for catching off the cuff moments. Shoots in HD, shoots in, let's see, power up time. I just hit the button and it's now powered up, ready to record. Records in 1080p, 720 at 60 frames a second, 720 at 30 frames a second, a format called WGA, and it also takes still pictures. One thing that's interesting about this is if you think holding a small baked potato sized camcorder, if you think holding one of those steady is tough, wait till you try one of these. I have a very difficult time even just framing the shots up properly, but it's great if you keep it wide. I've shot a couple of lacrosse games that my daughter plays in, a couple other things. The reason I got this is to use it as a second camera for a documentary shoot I have coming up, where I'll be traveling across the country to interview an author, and in any other situation, I can use a little mini tripod off to the side, set this up, actually use it to capture another angle of the interview, and at the same time, since it has a mic input, it's a backup audio recorder. So I'm going to double myself for recording purposes. One into this camera, one into this. I can sync them up in post. I got this on eBay, brand new, under $100. You might want to check it out. Now, if you remember last episode where we had the Spring Fling contest winner, Pat Beardsley, and I had his graphic behind me, there were some really bad green screen artifacts on that. Comes down to two things. That was shot with this camera. The room where I set up the green screen, I had set up before and tested, but the way I had set it up was the green screen was just leaning against the fireplace. There are a couple recessed lights in the ceiling. They served to light the green screen. This time, I put it on some painter poles type supports. Put this back in my pocket. And I didn't realize it at the time. They put it out in front of those lights, so the screen wasn't lit. The other fact was I was getting some shadows on the screen because it wasn't lit, so I moved myself forward. Silly me, I didn't move the lights back at all, so a couple times when you saw those horrible black artifacts, it was when my hands came up or when I leaned forward, I was overexposed. And you saw some black in the buttons as well. So take heed to that. If you're doing green screen, make sure you're lighting the screen separately. 2, make sure if you move the talent, you don't get them too close to the camera. And 3, if you're using something like this, I wouldn't, because the other problem that came in is the exposure change. This is automatic exposure. So if I lean forward, I brought things up, it changed the exposure. This camera was adjusting, so the green screen composite didn't work that well because things were shifting around. Other than that, the software I use, VideoPro X, does a great job with green screen, with very few controls, I might add. It's incredible in what you can do with the software. And for a small fraction of the price of something like, say, Avid or even Sony Vegas Pro. So the Kodak Zi8, been discontinued, but it's still out there, has a lot of advantages, namely the external microphone input and the fact that it records on removable media. Great as a backup camera for a wide shot in interview situations, or just to have with you to catch those impromptu moments that you realize if you have one of these in your pocket, those impromptu moments will never happen again because you'll be prepared. Isn't that the way it always is? You don't have the camera, you see something and you need to shoot. You have a camera with you, you never see anything. Oh well, better to err on the side of not having anything to shoot and having the camera there if by some strange possibility something comes up. And I'm rambling a bit, so we're going to cut it off here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Happy shooting.